Crime has always been a part of hip-hop culture, which means rappers and cops have never exactly been best friends.
Be careful with my thumb, it's broken. Be careful with my thumb. You see my skull? Be careful. Film now. Film. Come close. Take a step back.
And while the police usually have a hard time catching rappers slipping, sometimes rappers make it way too easy, literally snitching on themselves.
This video from almost 3 years ago shows a 16-year-old Tamor McIntyre in a small room with police, uncomfortable, wiping his eyes at times, and finally admitting to investigators he played a role in a home invasion and murder in Mansfield.
From G-Dep casually walking into a police station to confess to a crime.
It was kind of like a struggle, and I pulled the gun back from him, and then I fired 3 times.
To a rapper named 10 straight up rapping about the horrific thing he did.
Several of his 7 released tracks and freestyles on social media, Fahri, who's now 35, repeatedly references the attack that saw him locked up, as well as carrying weapons, gang life, and being in prison.
These are 10 rappers who self-snitched on camera. Trevor Coleman, better known as G-Dep, was once on his way to becoming a big name in hip-hop. But despite the fame and success, he was living with a dark secret, one that haunted him so much that he eventually did the unthinkable.
He was on the verge of making it big in the music business, and he seemed to have it all. To everyone else, the rapper known as G-Dep had a bright future. But he was haunted by his past, hiding a terrible secret.
For those who don't know, G-Dep stood for Ghetto Dependent, and he lived up to that name, rapping about street life in songs like Keep It Gangsta. But in '90, when he was just 18 years old, things took a turn that would change everything. Coleman had dropped out of college to pursue music, and like a lot of young rappers trying to fund their careers, he started selling drugs in Harlem.
Born Trevell Coleman dropped out of college at 18 in search of a music career. He paid for recording sessions by selling cocaine on the streets of Harlem, New York. He dabbled in drugs.
Then, on one night, in the fall of '90, just a month before his 19th birthday, Coleman was out riding his bike when he spotted a man standing under some scaffolding on Park Avenue and 114th Street. Looking for a quick come-up, he approached the man and said, "Give me the money."
Then I just went towards Park Avenue, and I saw a guy standing there. I approached him. He didn't seem like he saw me, so I just approached him. And then when I approached him, I asked him where the money was.
But instead of handing over the cash, the man hesitated. Then, according to Coleman, the guy suddenly reached for the gun. Instinct took over, and in a split second, Coleman pulled the trigger. He fired 3 times before fleeing on his bike.
Then he like grabbed the gun. It was kind of like a struggle, and I pulled the gun back from him, and then I fired 3 times.
At the time, he had no idea whether the man had survived or not. The next morning, he walked outside and saw the police canvassing the area, but no one suspected him.
He said, "Do you know anything about a shooting that occurred yesterday?" And I said, "Nah."
A week later, to erase any trace of the crime, he threw the gun into the East River and tried to move on with his life. And for a while, he did.
And that was the end of that.
Yeah.
4 years passed, then 5. His focus shifted completely to music, and by the late '90s, his talent had caught the attention of Diddy, one of the most powerful figures in hip-hop at the time. Coleman was offered $350,000 record deal, and just like that, he was on his way to stardom.
How much were they going to pay you?
Well, the record deal was for $350,000. It was definitely, more money than I have ever seen.
He had everything: a promising rap career, money, and even a family. He had a daughter with his ex-girlfriend, and later he met Crystal Sutton, the woman who would become his wife. And they got married in 2004 and had twin boys together. Life should have been good, but the guilt never left him.
How much did it eat at you?
It seemed like it just wasn't fair for me to, be happy, you know what I'm saying? I used to curb my happiness, now wait a minute, I'm smiling too much. And I thought about whether or not he had children. He could have been a father, and here I am trying to be a father.
No matter how much success he had, he couldn't escape what he had done. The weight of it started to take a toll on his music, and eventually, Diddy dropped him from Bad Boy Records. His career fell apart, and his life started spiraling.
Drugs, I was just knee deep in trying to, medicate myself. Everything was boiling down.
The guilt.
To that, yeah.
He battled drug addiction, depression, and regret. And by late 2010, he couldn't take it anymore. So one day, he walked into a police station and told an officer that he had shot a man 16 years ago. The police didn't take him seriously.
Maybe he thought that you were just faking this.
Yeah.
But Coleman wasn't giving up. 2 weeks later, he walked back into the station and confessed again.
What led you to walk into that police station?
I think I was just at a point, where there was like enough is enough.
This time, the cops decided to dig a little deeper. They pulled up old case files trying to match his vague memory to any unsolved crimes from that time. And that's when they found it. On October 19, 93, at the exact location Coleman described, a man named John Henkel had been shot and killed. Until that moment, Coleman didn't even know the guy had died. He thought it was just an armed robbery gone wrong, but the police told him the guy had died.
And then after a while, after I told him what happened, he said, I just wanted to let you know that the guy died.
Despite facing a murder charge, Coleman never once regretted turning himself in. When asked if he had any second thoughts, he simply said, nah.
Suddenly, you're charged in a murder. Did you start to have second thoughts?
Nah.
The case went to trial, and one of the jurors just happened to be Jim Nelson, the editor-in-chief of GQ magazine. He later wrote about the case, saying it was one of the most bizarre trials he had ever been a part of.
The hard parts about this case is that it involves a guy who didn't really need to come forward, who did. I mean, he needed to come forward for his conscience.
In the end, the jury found Coleman guilty of second-degree murder, and on May 8, 2012, he was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. Today, he's a free man, serving his sentence. And while a lot of people still question why he chose to snitch on himself, Coleman insists that it was the only way he could find peace.
Some of them even say he's an idiot. He should have shut up about it. Now we're dredging this whole thing up again all these years later.
A lot of the burden is lifted. I see that was what I needed to do.
Next up is Kenjuan McDaniel. In 2023, news broke that he was facing a murder charge for allegedly killing a man named Randall Wallace back in 2021, and according to police, he practically confessed to it in a song.
Well, police say the suspect in a 2021 deadly Henderson shooting allegedly confessed to the killing in a rap song.
In July 2023, Finn4800 dropped the track Fade E Free, and right from the start, he came in with the wild bar. I'm the reason why you dead.
Nigga, I want raps. I'm the reason why you dead.
Now, a line like that alone isn't enough to get anyone locked up, but it's what he said next that got him in serious trouble. One of the lines that caught their attention was, "Midget, how you let them turn your mama spot into a place they kick it?"
Message to that midget, how you let them turn your mama's spot into a place they kick it? That ain't what he bang, but what they hang. So he in it. My day with that fire, you hear it?
That might have sounded random to anyone else, but the cops saw a connection. Then, as if he wasn't already pushing his luck, he rapped about how the shooting allegedly went down, saying, "Park the car, double back on feet, the smartest way to slide. Drove in, double lock your man, make sure you get your bot."
Double back on feet, the smartest way to slide. Drove in, double lock your man, make sure you get your bot.
He didn't stop there, he kept going. "I be the reason why he's dead. We still taunt him when he died, not the reason he dead. So celebrate the reason why his mama cry."
When he dead, we still taunt him when he died, not the reason that he dead, so celebrate why his mama cry.
And just in case the message wasn't clear enough, Finn4800 added, "Brought it with that fire, heat that see your body twitching."
So we in it. My day with that fire, you hear it? See your body.
According to police reports, video footage and witnesses confirmed that Wallace's body was, in fact, twitching before he died. That line alone was like a smoking gun, and the cops wasted no time piecing it all together. Back in September 20, Randall Wallace was found outside an apartment complex, already dead when authorities arrived. The arrest report later revealed that Wallace and Finn4800 had some kind of altercation a few days before the shooting, but nobody really knows what led up to it. On the day of the murder, Wallace got into another argument, this time with 3 guys, and things escalated fast. He ended up getting shot, and police believe Finn4800 was involved. But the identities of the other two suspects remain a mystery. What's crazy about this case is that Finn100 was already a suspect, but without strong enough evidence, they couldn't charge him. Who knows how long he would have been walking free? But instead of laying low, he basically handed the cops the case on a silver platter by rapping about it in detail. They had everything they needed to slap him with a murder charge. Usually, police don't make an arrest unless they were pretty confident they can win the case, so the fact that they move forward means he might have described the crime scene a little too perfectly. Because of that one track, Finn4800 could be looking at life in prison, all because he wanted to flex in a song. Next up is Earl Lee, another rapper who found himself behind bars after being accused of killing Baltimore rapper David Boykin, better known as President Davo. In 12, Boykin was shot and killed in the South Clifton Park neighborhood, leaving the city stunned.
It's been 1 month since a gunman killed a local rapper. Now people know him as President Davo. He was killed in the Clifton Park neighborhood. Now Baltimore police say that they've caught his killer.
He was found suffering from multiple gunshot wounds on Cliffwood Avenue and rushed to a hospital where he was later pronounced dead. According to court documents, Boykin was chilling on a porch when someone came out of a nearby alleyway and shot him.
Charging documents show David Boykin, also known as President Davo, was sitting on his porch on this block when his shooter came up attacking him, striking him multiple times.
Investigators started looking into surveillance footage, and that's when things started falling into place. A getaway car caught on camera turned out to be registered to Earl Lee. From there, it was just a matter of putting the pieces together. Using ring camera footage and license plate tracking, police followed the car's movements throughout the city, leading them straight to Lee.
Charging documents show surveillance footage in the area helped lead police to Earl Lee, whose vehicle was seen leaving the scene after that shooting.
When they pulled him over, they found a loaded 9mm handgun under his driver's seat with a bullet already in the chamber. To make things worse, Lee was driving with a suspended license and wasn't even allowed to have a gun in the first place because of a prior assault conviction, one he got just 9 months before the murder. Despite all that, Lee didn't put up a fight when he was arrested. Instead, he straight up confessed to killing Boykin. The man admitted everything, including that the loaded gun in his car was his.
And after speaking with detectives, he admitted the gun was his and confessed to murdering David Boykin.
One neighbor in the area couldn't believe how bold Lee was, saying to be driving his own car and reporting to probation knowing what he did. That's gutsy. Real gutsy. Nobody deserves to die. That man didn't deserve to be judge and jury. Lee's confession sealed his fate. The evidence was already stacked against him, but he went ahead and made it even easier for the cops. Now, with a full confession in their hands, authorities are confident they got the right guy. As for the people in the neighborhood, many say that while the streets might be safer without him, it doesn't bring President Davo back. Then we got Tay-K. Tay-K was interrogated for his role in a fatal home invasion that led to the death of Ethan Walker in Mansfield, Texas. During questioning, a now famous interrogation video shows Tay-K trying to hold it together at first. But as investigators pressed him, he eventually broke down in tears. While he admitted to being part of the robbery, he insisted he didn't pull the trigger and had no idea it would turn deadly.
This video from almost 3 years ago shows a 16-year-old Tamor McIntyre in a small room with police, uncomfortable, wiping his eyes at times, and finally admitting to investigators he played a role in a home invasion and murder.
After being released from juvenile detention, Tay-K was put on house arrest and forced to wear an ankle monitor. But that didn't last long. One day, he tweeted out that he was done with it, and along with his best friend, he cut off the ankle monitor and hit the road. For 3 months, the cops had no clue where he was, and the US Marshals launched a nationwide manhunt. But instead of laying low, Tay-K made it clear he wasn't scared. He taunted the authorities. On June 30th, 2017, law enforcement finally caught up with him. But Tay-K had one last trick up his sleeve. Just hours after his arrest, the video for the race dropped on YouTube, and the timing was insane. The internet went wild. The song blew up overnight, and suddenly, the 17-year-old kid who had fled the cops was the talk of the music industry, but the fame didn't help him in court. Eventually, the jury sentenced him to 55 years in prison. Next up is Ksoo, a Jacksonville rapper whose name has been tied to some of the city's most violent street beefs. He got locked up along with his own father, who was charged as an accessory after the fact. all for allegedly getting revenge on a rival rapper named Lil Buck. The whole situation started when Lil Buck dissed Ksoo's older brother, who had been killed in a brutal ambush. 2 cars pulled up on a van full of Ksoo's relatives, blocked them in, and let off more than 100 rounds. After that, Ksoo and his father were accused of retaliating, leading to the 2020 murder of Charles McCormick, aka Lil Buck. In 2021, footage surfaced of Ksoo being interrogated about his alleged role in Lil Buck's death. If that wasn't bad enough, Ksoo was also charged in the 2019 killing of Adrian Gaynor, aka Bibby. The footage showed how visibly frustrated he was.
Bibby, ring a bell to you?
I don't speak with my lawyer.
You want to speak with your lawyer?
Yes.
Okay.
For your arrest.
We have a warrant for your arrest for murder today.
What?
Yes.
For what?
You want your lawyer, so I can't tell you no more, but you'll be in trouble.
What the hell?
But then things got even crazier when another video dropped. This time, it was his father in an interrogation room, seemingly throwing Ksoo under the bus.
Now, within a couple days of the did you see anything on social media posted by your son Hakeem Robinson that concerns you?
Yes, sir.
Then there's Foolio. Back in April 2022, he got pulled over for what seemed like a routine traffic stop. But things took a turn when the cops started pressing him about the murder of his best friend, ATK Mitch.
I ain't want to bring it up. I know you can be upset. Mitch, there's some texts I want to talk to you real quick about what happened to Mitch.
How long that's going to take?
Not that long. Depends on you.
Foolio quickly realized this wasn't just about a traffic violation. The cops were fishing for information. They started asking about Mitch, trying to see if Foolio would slip up and give them something they could use. But Foolio wasn't going for it. He kept his answers vague, basically telling them he didn't know anything.
I was in Miami when I heard the news, you know what I'm saying? I was down south with a worm making music, and I saw posting on Instagram, Mitch there, the whole Jacksonville, Mitch.
The detectives didn't seem to have much to go on, and Foolio wasn't about to help them build a case. The interrogation was short, but Foolio made the best of a bad situation. A clip of him sitting in the interrogation room casually singing Dark Cloud by Rod Wave went viral.
Dark day, there's so many dark days, dark clouds, there's so many dark days. There's so many dark days.
Fast forward to 2024 and Foolio's story takes a tragic turn. He was murdered, sending shockwaves through the rap world. Moving across the pond, we have Jake Fahri, a name that resurfaced for all the wrong reasons. Fahri was originally sentenced to life for a brutal killing back in 2008. He was just 19 when he got into an argument at a bakery in Lee, southeast London. Instead of walking away, he grabbed a large glass dish, threw it at a 16-year-old named Jimmy Mizzen, and ended up severing an artery in his neck. Jimmy didn't survive, and Fahri was locked up for 14 years.
Jake Fahri was handed a life sentence in 2009 for the savage murder of 16-year-old Jimmy in a London bakery, in a crime that shocked the nation.
But here's where it gets wild. Fahri was released on parole in June 2023, but within months, he was back in the headlines. The reason is because he had apparently reinvented himself as a mass drill rapper named 10, and was out here rapping about his crime like it was a badge of honor. In his tracks, he dropped bars that seemed to reference the murder, saying things like, "Stuck it on a man and watched him melt like Ben and Jerry's."
His popular social media accounts, Fahri's other lyrics include, "Stuck it on a man and watched him melt like Ben and Jerry."
Another verse was even more chilling. "See a man's soul fly from his eyes and his breath gone. I wanted more, it made it less wrong." Next up, we got Drakeo the Ruler. On December 10, 2016, a known member of the Inglewood family Gangsta Bloods, IFGB, named Davion Gregory, aka Red Bull, was shot and killed. According to reports, Red Bull and two of his homies were on their way to a naughty or nice pajama jam at a warehouse when someone pulled up and let off shots. Red Bull was hit and didn't make it, while his two friends were injured. Witnesses at the scene claimed they saw two suspicious vehicles speed off, a black Mercedes SUV and a red Mustang or Benz. That's where things got crazy. Investigators started piecing things together, and soon enough, they recovered shell casings from a .40 Glock pistol and a .38 revolver. This led them straight to Drakeo and his crew, the Stink Team. Authorities claimed that Drakeo was the mastermind behind the hit, allegedly supplying the weapons for an attack meant to catch an enemy off guard. That enemy was a fellow rapper named RJ, who was affiliated with IFGB. Drakeo, his brother Ralphie the Plug, and another Stink Team member, Kels, were arrested and charged with first-degree murder, vying counts of attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and 2 gun charges. The police even tried to use Drakeo's own lyrics against him, specifically a track called Flex Freestyle, which contained disses aimed at RJ.
I'm riding around town with a Tommy gun and a jag, and you can disregard the yelling RJ tied up in the back, man. Stop.
But after a long trial, Drakeo came out on top, at least partially. In 2019, he was acquitted of the most serious charges, and after spending years behind bars, he was finally released in 20.
This time, you get charged with first-degree murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder.
Yep, first-degree murder, conspiracy, 5 attempted murders.
5 attempted murders.
Unfortunately, just as he was reclaiming his place in the rap game, tragedy struck again. In December 2021, Drakeo was fatally stabbed at the Once Upon a Time in LA festival. Next up, DaBaby. Back in 2021, DaBaby was involved in a shooting outside Prime 112, a high-end restaurant in Miami.
DaBaby, who you see here at the Billboard Music Awards, was taken in for questioning earlier today by authorities who were investigating a shooting in Miami Beach.
The details were messy, but according to DaBaby, it was all self-defense. In a now-deleted interrogation video, he broke it all down to the cops. He said he was leaving the restaurant with his security when suddenly he heard gunshots. Instinct kicked in, and he immediately ducked down before ordering his assistant to hand him a book bag that had a gun inside so he could protect himself. According to him, the situation got even crazier when the shooter hopped into a Chrysler 300 that belonged to one of DaBaby's associates and started driving toward them, flashing guns. Naturally, things escalated and shots were exchanged. When the dust settled, police arrested 2 people, Christopher Urena and one of DaBaby's artists, Wisdom, who was signed to his billion-dollar Baby Entertainment label.
A person close to rap superstar and Charlotte native DaBaby is charged with attempted murder.
Finally, we got Keefe D. Now, this one is legendary because if you followed the Tupac case at all, you already know Keefe D's name has been floating around for years. But unlike most people who would keep their mouths shut when it comes to an unsolved murder, Keefe D did the exact opposite. He told on himself repeatedly and in the most public ways possible.
He pulled off on his side.
So you were fitting to blast if you had to, or you were just...
Yeah, if we would have been on our side, I would have blasted.
For years, Keefe D claimed he was in the car that carried the shooter, and he had been name-dropping himself in documentaries, interviews, and even in his book. In 2018, a BET series called Death Row Chronicles revisited the case, and Keefe D's public statements caught the attention of Las Vegas police. They decided to reopen the case and start digging again.
You said the shots came from the back. Big Dre, Orlando. Who shot Tupac?
The keeper for the code of the streets. It just came from the backseat, bro.
Then, in Tway, things finally caught up to him. On September 29th, Las Vegas police arrested Keefe D for his involvement in Tupac's murder. Even though they didn't name him as the actual shooter, they claimed he played a crucial role in orchestrating the hit.